You know that feeling, that sort of constant background noise in your head trying to figure things out?
Oh, absolutely. We're just bombarded with information, and we have this deep need to make sense of it all.
Yeah, and we're always asking, maybe without even realizing it, what does this actually mean? And maybe even more pressing, what's it saying about me?
Exactly. That drive to assign meaning, it's fundamental. It's not just about basic survival anymore. It's actively shaping our whole experience.
How so?
Well, think about it. The exact same thing can happen, but how you interpret it, the meaning you give it, that completely changes how you feel.
Right.
And that meaning, that interpretation, it directly affects your thoughts, your mood, and, ultimately the way your life plays out.
It's like this powerful engine running under the surface, often completely unconsciously.
Mm.
And that's what we're digging into today. We're looking at this process, and we're using some great insights from an article by Lark Erickson. They're a coach focused on relationships and confidence.
Yeah, Erickson provides a really useful framework for understanding this whole meaning-making thing,
Yeah.
and importantly, how to maybe get a bit more control over it.
Control where it trips us up,
Right.
right, where it causes that unnecessary pain.
Precisely.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive. Let's unpack Erickson's view on how we assign meaning, zero in on where this might be causing problems in your life, and then walk through a practical tool they offer, a way to reframe those automatic thoughts.
Sounds good. Let's get into it.
So this tendency we mentioned, this constant need to give things meaning, it's necessary, but wow, it can be draining.
It really can. Our brains are just wired for it, like high-speed sense-making machines.
Erickson uses some really simple everyday examples that hit home, like choosing a burger over a salad for lunch.
Right. What does that mean?
Yeah. Does it just mean you're hungry?
Right.
Or does your brain instantly go to, oh, I'm blowing my diet again?
Or someone smiles at you on the street. Are they just being friendly, or do you immediately think, maybe they're interested?
The meaning changes everything. And that meaning you land on, that's what triggers the feeling, right? The burger could be satisfying fuel or instant guilt.
Exactly. That smile could be a nice little boost, or it could suddenly make you feel self-conscious or anxious, depending entirely on the story you tell yourself about it.
So if this is happening all the time and it's so powerful, how do we pinpoint where it's actually becoming a problem? Where is it causing real pain?
Well, Erickson has a pretty direct test for this. Maybe a little uncomfortable, but effective.
Okay.
They basically say, look at the areas in your life where you consistently feel the shittiest or just the most discontent,
Aww.
that nagging negative feeling. It's often not just the situation itself. It's like a big flashing sign pointing to the unhelpful or painful meanings you're attaching to whatever's happening.
That makes a lot of sense, even if it's blunt. If you constantly feel bad about, say, your job or a specific relationship, maybe it's time to ask, is it just the job, or is it the story I'm telling myself about the job and what it means about me?
And facing that possibility that you might be part of the reason you feel bad because of your interpretations, that's tough. It's often the biggest hurdle.
Definitely easier to blame external stuff.
Always. But acknowledging it opens the door to change. Erickson says the way forward involves kind of two main things. First, recognizing your own weak spots, those insecurities that tend to fuel the negative takes.
Okay.
And second, actively practicing catching and reframing those automatic negative thoughts. It takes conscious effort.
Right, it's not passive. And Erickson highlights relationships as a key area where this stuff really flares up, doesn't it? Makes sense. That's where insecurities often feel most exposed.
Totally. They give a few scenarios that are probably very familiar to a lot of people.
Let's walk through them. Okay, scenario one. You texted a friend maybe a couple of days ago. Still nothing back.
Mm-hmm. Classic.
So the typical negative meaning you might assign to the situation itself, something like, oh, they're probably just swamped, or they've got more important things going on, seems reasonable enough.
But then comes the kicker.
Yeah, the painful meaning you immediately assign about you, like, they must not like me anymore, or this is it, they're ghosting me.
And this is where Erickson delivers that really simple, powerful truth bomb. The reality is you actually don't know.
Right. You've taken one tiny piece of data, no text, and built this whole painful narrative around your own worth.
It cuts right through the assumptions. You don't have the facts.
It feels almost radical when you're stuck in that loop. Okay, scenario two. Went on a date, maybe it felt great, maybe even ended with a kiss. But now, trying to set up date number two feels sticky, difficult.
Yeah, the logistics seem off or the replies are slow.
So the meaning about the situation, they're probably seeing other people, or maybe they didn't have as good a time as I thought. And the meaning about you.
They're just not that into me. Straight to self-doubt.
And again, Erickson's point lands hard. You don't know. You're filling that gap, that lack of information, with assumptions that hurt you.
You're basically inventing reasons to feel bad.
Okay, last one they give. Scenario 3. Your partner seems to be on their phone, like a lot more than usual lately.
Oh, boy.
The meaning you might jump to about the situation? Uh-oh. This looks
Right.
like, are they talking to someone else? Could they be
The
cheating?
mind goes there fast.
And then the devastating meaning about you. This must mean they don't love me anymore. I'm not enough for them.
And the refrain, the reality check Erickson keeps bringing us back to.
And you don't know. You're creating a worst-case scenario in your head with zero concrete proof. You're manufacturing your own distress.
Exactly.
But, okay, Erickson anticipates the counter-argument here, right? People thinking, hang on, but this actually happened to me before. I was ghosted, or my ex did cheat after acting like this.
Yeah, that's a really common and understandable reaction. Why shouldn't I assume the worst now based on experience?
So with Erickson's answer to that, why doesn't past pain justify assuming the worst now?
They give two main reasons. First, just because something happened in the past, even if it feels really similar, it doesn't automatically mean the same thing is happening now. The past doesn't dictate the future outcome of this specific new situation.
Okay, that makes sense. Each situation is technically unique. What's the second reason?
The second one is maybe even more about your immediate well-being. Choosing to jump to the worst conclusion right now, based on old wounds, primarily just makes you feel awful in this present moment. You're essentially pre-punishing yourself. You're borrowing suffering from a potential future one you don't even know will happen and making yourself miserable with it today. You feel hurt now based on a story that might be completely wrong.
That's wow. You're causing present pain based on an unconfirmed future possibility rooted in past hurt.
Pretty much. And this leads into Erickson sharing a bit of their own story, which I found really powerful.
Yeah, tell us about that.
They talk about struggling with low self-esteem for a long time and how that insecurity acted like a filter for everything. Any small social misstep,
Right.
any ambiguous comment, any perceived it was all instantly interpreted through this negative lens. Thoughts like, see, I'm unlikable, or I knew I was too weird for them.
Oh, wow.
And the crucial point they make is that the damage, the real long-term hurt, came far more from that internal narrative, the awful things they told themselves based on those interpretations, than from whatever minor external thing actually happened.
That really highlights the power of the stories we tell ourselves. The internal meaning assignment can be more damaging than the external event.
Absolutely. We get so focused on avoiding potential external rejection or pain, but we're already doing damage internally with these harsh interpretations.
So this is the core of it. How do we break that cycle? How do we stop that automatic leap to the worst, most painful meaning? Erickson offers a really practical exercise, right? A step-by-step thing.
Yes, and they suggest actually writing it down, which can be really helpful to sort of externalize it and see it more clearly.
Okay, what's step 1?
Step 1, write down the situation objectively. Just the facts. No emotion, no spin. The example used was simply, she didn't text me back.
Bare bones.
Yeah.
Like a news report. Okay, step 2.
Write down how that makes you feel and what you think it means about you. This is where you let those immediate painful thoughts out onto the page. So following the example, I feel rejected. This means I'm a loser and she doesn't want to see me again.
Got it. Get the negative interpretation out there. Then step 3.
Step 3 is crucial. For each of those negative thoughts you just wrote down, you actively brainstorm and write down alternative explanations. What else might really be going on? Things that are less painful.
So sticking with the example.
Yeah, like, okay, maybe I am great, but maybe we're just not the right fit. That doesn't make me a loser. Or maybe she is interested, but she's genuinely slammed at work today and literally can't text. Or maybe your phone died. You generate possibilities.
So you're consciously countering that single automatic negative story with other potentially less devastating options. And what's the final step? Step 4.
Step 4 is about consciously letting yourself settle into the truth we keep coming back to. You don't know. Allow that uncertainty. Let the maybe calmness of not knowing wash over you. Stop the runaway train of catastrophic thinking right there.
Just let the situation be without loading it with your worst fears.
Exactly. Let it breathe and unfold without your negative interpretations making you feel terrible before you even have real information. It's about creating that space between the trigger and your reaction.
And Erickson says that doing this practice, like regularly, it helps you feel more in control.
Yeah, much more in control of your thoughts and emotions because you're not just being swept away by the first negative assumption that pops into your head. You're actively intervening.
And that change in perspective, that feeling of having more agency over your internal state, that's what changes things.
That's the core message. Change your perspective, change your life. It sounds simple, but it's profound when you realize how much hinges on the meaning you assign.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what does this all really mean for us, for you listening?
Well, it means recognizing this incredibly powerful internal mechanism, how the meaning we assign shapes our thoughts, our moods, our whole lives.
And realizing that we often cause ourselves a lot of unnecessary pain by automatically jumping to the worst conclusions, by creating these terrible stories in our heads when, frankly, we just don't have all the facts.
hmm And Erickson's approach, this practice, gives us a way to challenge that, to
Yeah.
identify those painful automatic meanings and reframe them, often by just embracing that simple, powerful idea. A lot of the time we don't know.
So here's a final thought to chew on. If our internal assignment of meaning is that powerful in crafting our experience, and we can learn to choose different meanings, or even just rest in, I don't know, how much of the reality we perceive is actually just a reflection of our own internal stories?
Yeah, how much of what feels like objective reality is actually shaped by the lens we're looking through, the
Yeah.
meanings we're projecting onto it?
Something to think about. Maybe consider. Where could you apply this practice right now? Where are you feeling that consistent shitty feeling? That might be the perfect place to start practicing. Just noticing the story and maybe, just maybe, finding some peace and acknowledging you don't actually know yet.